What's up, guys, and welcome back to another Marvel review. Of course, this one being Doctor Strange became evil, I guess.
What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands?
And of course, that is a reference from that accident he had. Instead of losing his hands for operation, he actually lost the love of his life.
Can we start this off, Talos? I never expected in my life to see a movie where a man would mess with time to be with Rachel McAdams. And weirdly enough, I've seen it twice in the last 10 years.
What do you mean?
In the film About Time, Donald Gleason, you know, he uses time travel to get with Rachel McAdams. Here you have Doctor Strange using time travel to spend a life with Rachel McAdams.
I get it.
I believe she's in the time traveler's wife as well, I think.
All right, before we actually get to the episode, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, of course.
Oh yeah, that stuff.
Yeah, that stuff. We're definitely trying to pump out these episodes as quickly as possible for you guys. Obviously, we are in catch-up mode with everything that's going on, with all the reactions that's happening, all the movies coming out. So definitely subscribe because we have a lot of good content coming up for the rest of the year.
Let's say the premise of the episode, like we said, it's basically Doctor Strange, Christine dies instead of him losing his hands, and that's what spurs him on to become Doctor Strange. And, you know, all the events of the Doctor Strange movie happen. One night on the anniversary of her death, he decides to reverse time and try to bring her back, like change the events of that night.
But he can't do it. It's been looping and looping to multiple different deaths.
What did you think of that?
What did I think about that?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit silly.
You think so? I think it kind of makes sense. Why do you think it's silly?
So the ones we see, he kind of does the exact same thing, right? Then the exact same accident happens. It's like he tries to go a different route. So a truck hits the car. The next one is they get to the dance, she has a heart attack. Then he decides not to go and she dies in a fire.
In her apartment.
The stupidest one is like, oh, we're going for pizza, and then just a random guy walks in with a gun and shoots her.
So why, like, no matter what he does, it still doesn't? Why? What was their explanation here in this episode?
It's an absolute point in time. So if she doesn't die, he doesn't become Doctor Strange.
But that makes sense though, right?
No, it doesn't. We've seen the universe where she doesn't die and he still becomes Doctor Strange. So the Ancient One going, oh, if she has to die so you become Doctor Strange.
For this particular universe, yes.
No, if he lost his hands, he'd have the same motivation. Like, why doesn't he just go, I'll just break your fucking hands, mate?
Well, okay. The thing is, though, like, hypothetically, if we go back to the very first Doctor Strange movie and he tried to go back in time to fix his hands, or his hands never got whatever damage, I think that will still have an absolute point as well.
Yeah, but like the whole point is of being like, this has to happen or else you don't become Doctor Strange. Doesn't make sense to me because it's like, I've seen it happen where she lives and he still becomes Doctor Strange. Like, I don't think her death is the absolute point. I think it's just a tragedy that night.
I guess that was the simplistic way they can explain it to contain in that 25-minute episode.
Editor Peter had like a way better version of how they could have done that. That sequence starts and then Strange basically starts to know what's going on, and he starts using his powers to like, so like the car's gonna hit them, right? So he uses his powers kind of just to push that car like away a bit.
That is true because he still has the time stone.
Yeah, so it's like it could have been, and this is what Peter suggested, is it would have been better if it was like a cool chase, and like the more and more happens, the more stuff is just trying to kill her. I think that would have been a cool method. By the way, my electricity alarm is going off. We'll be right back.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Today's sponsor of today's video, Public. Public is a investment app right at your fingertips. You can invest using our referral link down below to get up to $50 worth of stock. Use this, and of course it helps promote the show. All the money that goes into Public actually goes back into the production of this show and future shows in Noneother. And of course, thank you again, Public. And now, back to the show. So going back into the episode, like, obviously Chrisora doesn't really like the idea of the absolute point. I kind of do.
I just think it doesn't make any sense if you've seen the Doctor Strange movie, it doesn't make any sense because you've already seen the universe.
But as we talked about in previous recordings, I feel like these episodes not really, well, they are, but they aren't for those who watch the movies. That makes sense.
Yeah.
They're almost a way to almost advertise Marvel for the general audience to watch other Marvel movies.
I'm gonna disagree heavily with that, but okay. The only explanation I can maybe give, but I still think it's a bit of a dumb one, is maybe that's like an alternate universe, and the kind of conqueror of that universe has that as like one of the absolute points of his sacred timeline.
Maybe that'll make sense.
That's the only thing I can think of. But at the same time, I'm like, I've seen a universe where she lives, so it's like, I don't know. So after so many failed attempts, the Ancient One shows up, and she basically says to Doctor Strange, it's an absolute point. There's no way you can do this. And Doctor Strange is, surely there has to be some way. And she's like, well, no sorcerer has ever managed to successfully do this. And he goes, none that we know of. And I think as well, what would have been way more interesting here, what do you think of this idea, Talos? What if Doctor Strange had to get the Infinity Gauntlet and like go full Thanos on it? Because he knows about all the stones and stuff. So I'm like, well, that makes sense, because surely you can use the Infinity Gauntlet and do that.
I think there's multiple different scenarios that it could have went with, but instead what they end up doing is, I guess he went back centuries and centuries ago.
She said she split the timeline to have two Doctor Stranges. It's one Doctor Strange gets to go back, because that's what Doctor Strange is going to do anyway. He was going to use the time stone, zip back to the past to learn all this shit, and, you know, learn how to change an absolute point. Whereas the other Doctor Strange then wakes up, resumes back to that moment where he decided to go back in time and goes, oh, maybe living in the past isn't so good. You get the two timelines. But yeah, so the training sequence with Dark Doctor Strange, I thought was good, of him having to absorb all the monsters.
Now, when it comes to the actual monster absorption stuff, there's a lot of Easter eggs involved with that, but we're not going to cover it here in this episode, because obviously a lot of it is just like monsters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
No.
Or Marvel Comics. Yeah, Marvel Comics mostly. Yeah.
There's probably so many other people that have covered it, so go look at those videos.
New rock stars. Shout out, I guess.
There's a really interesting moment where the Watcher is like, and again, I thought this was a bit silly, where he's like, I would have told him maybe that's a bad idea, but I doubt he would have listened. And there's a part where Doctor Strange like looks behind, he's like, what? Somebody say something! It's like he was listening. It was so silly.
But it shows that he has like the omniscient, or like that he's able to like hear the Watcher like other people can't.
It's revealed then to the Doctor Strange that resumes from that point on, and he walks out and the world is like melting.
What monster that he wanted to absorb was this like almost tentacle monster that was featured in like episode 1. I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know if there's any direct connection, maybe, probably not, but that was the monster that his final boss absorption before he actually converges to that same, or that other Doctor Strange.
I've seen a lot of people like, you know, theorizing about that. Whereas to me, when I was watching it, maybe I just have a more cynical approach to it, but I'm like, maybe there is like a whole deeper reference to it, but I also think it's like, it's a cheap way to kind of cut corners with the animation is, well, we don't have to model another big giant monster, we can just use the one we used in the first episode.
Yeah, I mean, it might be just that simplistic of a reason.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying, like, obviously they finally meet and find out what's going on. They see all this goopy, I guess you can call it that. And that's when we meet the evil Doctor Strange and the, I guess, good Doctor Strange, and they collide into this epic battle. What did you think about the battle between? I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought it was a good battle. I thought it was well choreographed. No, my favorite part of it though, the cape fight.
Oh, dude, it was.
That was awesome. That was so good.
Yeah. That was a good fight.
Then there's like a really weird moment after that, where the evil Doctor Strange pulls in regular Doctor Strange.
Oh, the shadow? Yeah.
Yeah, but then he disguises himself as Christine and is like, oh, Doctor Strange, I love you. And I was kind of, when it's revealed that that was evil Doctor Strange, I was like, hang on, was he gonna like bang himself to be like, no, this is all good. Let's just bang it.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought about that too. It was like, that is weird, dude. That's like Loki level stuff, except even worse than Loki level stuff.
Way worse than Loki.
What? It's not gay. It's you on you.
Ultimately though, I guess the evil Doctor Strange absorbed the good Doctor Strange to be completed.
Doctor Strange fixes that absolute point. Kind of, not really. because Christine still just goops away. She sees him as like a monster, and then he turns back into himself.
It's almost like a Beauty and the Beast, almost.
Kinda. And then that universe is just a big diamond that gets destroyed.
Yeah, it just kind of closes in, and then he's in diamond stuck forever. And he's like actually communicating with the Watchers, like, "Oh, you're a god. You can fix this. You can whatever." It's like, "Oh, I don't do that. I just watch."
My question to you, Talos, because this really felt like the Watcher was getting close to interfering. Do you think that we'll see the Watcher interfering?
I'm taking last episode. He might.
It's 9 episodes, so I'm gonna say episode 8.
Oh, really? Okay.
What did you think of the performances? Because this is the first What If episode to get back all of the original actors.
I didn't have any issues. I thought they were all done pretty well. I feel like the voice acting compared to like other episodes, I think this is probably one of the better ones. I think.
To me, it's weird, right? Because I know it's Benedict Cumberbatch now. Like I knew that, but when I first watched the episode, Stephen Strange, before he becomes the Doctor, like at the start of the episode, and he's like, "Hey, Christine, get in the car," blah blah blah. That shit. To me, it didn't sound like Benedict Cumberbatch at all. And then he becomes Doctor Strange, and I'm like, oh, it sounds more like Benedict Cumberbatch now. I guess that guy was doing like a poor impression at the start. But then it turns out, no, it was Benedict Cumberbatch the whole time. So I don't know, his performance was weird to me because it just didn't sound like him. It sounded like somebody doing an impersonation of him. It was weird. Whenever he wasn't Doctor Strange, whenever he was Stephen Strange, he didn't sound like himself.
That's the one thing I will credit you. Like, obviously, Chrisora has done voice acting work. I can't really hear those things that he can. So, to me, as a general user, I guess, or a viewer, I thought it was fine for the most part. But yes, final verdicts. In terms of the actual, because also we have 2 ratings.
Episode and 1 for the concept.
So, for the concept of it, I personally like the concept of it. Like, there are a few things that I'll probably down the point a little bit from what Chrisora was saying in terms of like the silliness of it. I'll drop it down to an 8 out of 10 because the reason why the end, it kind of links almost to my final rating. The final rating being a 9 out of 10 because this is one of the episodes where I really wanted to see more of. Obviously, it ended in a very somber note, which is the first of which, like, it's great for the idea of it. Is that universe just completely done now? Like, can he not like redeem himself? Is he stuck there in that, what was it, that diamond prism, whatever, forever? Like, I just want to know more about that. But I'm gonna give that final rating a 9 out of 10, simplistically.
Damn.
What about you?
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you. I did like that it ended on a somber note. That's probably one of the better things that this has done. This one, I kind of hope it doesn't get a sequel, or I hope there's no follow-up to it. I hope that's just the end of that universe. I think that's just a good way to close it off. Like, I don't want to see him hop into another universe or become a bad guy somewhere else. I know there's theories of what if the Doctor Strange we see in No Way Home at the start that does the stuff for Peter is actually this Doctor Strange, and I hope that's not the case. I don't know. I think it weakens this episode if he can just jump to another universe. So for the concept, I'm gonna give it's a good idea of like, what if the circumstances were different? Like, it is a good idea. I think it's just executed poorly. So the concept of what if Doctor Strange lost her instead of his hand, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. For the actual episode itself, there's just a lot of silliness with how it executes that concept, and so I'm gonna rate the episode itself actually lower, and I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay, a little bit opposite of mine for sure.
Yeah.
But of course, you saw the review, our different opinions, of course, on it. Let us know what your opinions are in the comments down below, and of course, like this video, and of course, check out our sponsor public, I actually should say, down in the description for up to $50 worth of stock. Of course, invest into your future. And of course, it also helps us out right here on the Noneother programming shows. That's pretty much all we got. So I guess that wraps it kind of nice and clean. We'll definitely see the next What If episode coming up next time.
See you in the next one.